Hiya, we're here for day 13. And today we're going to be talking about ways to secure funding for your degree. I've talked about this in little sprinkles here and there in different videos that I've completed, but I do want to talk through how you can line up different forms of financial aid and make sure that your degree is getting paid for. Obviously, I'm going to say there's scholarships out in the world, right? There's different funding opportunities that you can pursue, you can apply to, you can have someone submit a referral for you to get nominated for. There's lots of opportunities like that, and that's not specifically what I'm focusing on today. I want to focus on what got me my full tuition scholarship to Harvard and also to NYU and UC Berkeley. Again, I'm going to bring up those essays because that is what got me that funding for all of those programs. So in my essays, I wrote about essentially wanting to give back to my community and almost pursue a public service or a social impact role through urban planning. And that is, if it's usually social impact in an urban planning way, a lot of it is through the public sector. So nonprofit routes were of interest to me. So emphasized and highlighted my passion and lens through environmental justice, that I see the world and how I navigate the world, which helped frame my essays. Now, because I wrote about those specific topics in an umbrella view, coupled with my merit from my academic accomplishments at my undergrad program, I qualified for different types of scholarships. So some of those scholarships were, for example, the Presidential Fellowship through Harvard University, which is merit-based and focused primarily on people interested in pursuing public service in their career with their degree. So that was perfect alignment. And they were only able to gauge that through my essays. NYU, they actually had just started a Bloomberg Fellows program, which was full tuition, and they also offered a summer stipend to work with a public entity so that you didn't have to worry about funding to do something good in the world. Again, they knew I wanted to do public service oriented work because of my essays and how I explained that and kept it as a through line in my resume, essays, and any other submission materials I used to apply. Berkeley, they just thought I was broke. They did offer me a specific scholarship. I'm blanking on the name of what it actually was. It was a merit and predominantly, I believe, for low income students of color. So that's kind of how I got that one. And that was providing a housing stipend as well, in addition to the full tuition. Essays, the topics you write about, can guarantee you scholarships that you didn't even realize or know you were being qualified or examined to qualify for. Another way to secure funding is through research assistantships or resident assistantships, both of which I'm going to discuss a bit. Well, research assistantships, they're essentially a linkage to a professor's research, and through those opportunities you can get tuition paid for, you can get room and board paid for, you can get food or stipends for living and accommodations that you wouldn't necessarily have access to if you were not a research assistant. Resident assistant is someone who gets full room and board, full tuition paid for, and what they do is they place you in a dorm with undergrads and you are basically responsible for their well-being to a certain extent. I had a friend who did that, and there was this dust flying. I had a friend who did that, and they essentially one weekend a month had to stay in the resident building and rotated with the other RA that was there. So it was very low-lived, but they had their food paid for, they had their housing paid for, obviously because they were in a dorm. They had their tuition paid for as well. They had super close proximity to campus because they were on campus with housing. And it was a pretty good gig. Application cycles for those are usually in the spring semester. So we're thinking January to March, April timeline. And even though you won't have a set date on when you would be accepted into a program. I actually found out about my program in like February. So you do have time to apply and you're not completely cut out of that, but just keep in mind the window of overlap is very short and tight for that type of opportunity. Other avenue I want you to look at, and this is particularly for my international students, you have access to different alumni network hubs through, they have like a site for major cities in every country. And because of that, that has a direct access to certain funding, fellowship, and scholarship opportunities because they will pay for example, a student who's from Brazil to go study at Harvard a specific topic or just any topic as long as they apply. So that's another avenue to think about, and figuring out where your center is and who's connected to that center and how you can tap into those resources is another way you can get financial aid. Last pro tip is towards the time you're supposed to accept your admission to a school. Let's say they gave you like $10 and school cost $100 total. So towards the timeline when you have to have a final deadline decision about, oh, I'm choosing UC Berkeley versus Harvard, around that time, a lot of people are going to start making decisions about where they want to go to school. And because of that, any scholarship funding offered to them will go back into the bigger like pool of money that was available. So you can actually keep reaching out to financial aid folks and saying, hey, any updates on if there's additional funding available, blah, 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 blah. This is my top choice program, really interested. Financial aid is an issue for me. And they probably would be able to offer you some additional aid if you asked for it around that timeline, or if you do accept post that deadline to accept or not, there will be funding obviously coming back into the pool because not everyone accepts. These are just some tips and tricks to keep in mind when you're thinking through financial aid and how you can get support to fund a program, because I know for me that was a huge, if not the biggest factor to consider when choosing my program, and I was really fortunate to have options in that regard. So just wanted to put that out there in case anyone else is thinking about that and how they can navigate it. If you have any other questions, feel free to comment below, and if not, I will see you tomorrow. Bye, y'all.